Hey guys, welcome to today's video on why burnout looks different for women. So if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Elika. I'm an energy optimization coach and a trusted advisor for purpose-driven leaders who want to have way more energy because they realize they're going to need their energy to create the impact that they're here to do in this world. So I'm going to have so many videos, as you can imagine, around different elements of burnout, but I felt it was really important to focus this video on women today. I don't always look at just gender specific videos because I feel like sometimes we end up thinking that same issues are not affecting both genders, and they really do, because even when women are burning out, a burnt out woman, the impact that has on her family, on her community, on her workplace is huge. But I do think we do need to tap into this because I do think women need to understand that there are an environment that is the workplace that was traditionally built by men for men. And so things are going to look very different to them. So what I would say is that when the obvious to me is that when women are burning out, it's not like a quick, fast collapse. Like they actually keep on going and serving and like performing. And it's not like just this crash like that we imagine. Like burnout is different for each woman. Like, what I tend to see as a common theme is that it can seem like a lot of success on the outside, but on the inside, that person, the woman is feeling so depleted on the inside. So the nuances of it aren't always what you think, like, oh my God, this person's exhausted, they're just crashing out. They're like getting angry with everybody and then just, I'm done. No. Especially if you're like if you talk about, I'm a fire sign, so that rage could build up and I could be like, I'm done. But when I think about the water signs or the earth signs, they're a lot more grounded, a lot more stable, things take a lot slower, especially earth signs, to change. So some of the symptoms that you're going to see are going to be the same as men, but some are not. So I definitely recall my sleep and how I knew that it was a problem, that I was just starting to have problems waking up in the middle of the night and just not having that consistency in my sleep. And I had not just one burnout, two burnouts. So I didn't learn the first time. And I would definitely say that the second time I had more sleep issues than I did the first time. Because the first time was at work and I was just this high achiever, burning my physical body out, I think, in all that I was doing. And maybe to some extent my mental body. But in the second burnout, it was very emotional. It was very much like my heart just feeling broken, mistrust with my team, and just like constantly feeling like there was so much burden in my mind. So that, I think, is the reason why that affected my sleep more than the first time. And then, depending on age, PMS symptoms are going to intensify. So women having painful periods, I always say that when your period comes, this is really where you go to see, how did you manage your energy through the month? Like, did you push too much and not give yourself enough break, not rest? Did you not pause? Like, I think a period is so beautiful to show a woman, like, how they've been managing their energy through that month. So if you're no longer having your periods, a woman will still experience fluctuations in their energy in the month, and they can track that. And you will still notice that when it comes to that time of the month where you would have been bleeding, you feel a deflation. The women describe this to me as like a flatness that's not the same as a reflectiveness that we naturally experience when we are menstruating, or at that time of the month. I refer to it as our season, our winter season. So you feel it slightly differently, more flatness. Brain fog, like honestly, when you are burning out, like your energy is now depleted, and so you just cannot think straight. You have a forgetfulness. You have a fog that doesn't allow you to bring things to mind as quickly. And then another thing that was really big for me, it's just really hard, was resentment, where you really start to resent people in your life. And for me, this is because the buildup of the emotion. So for me, it always starts with frustration. I get frustrated at how someone's behaving, frustrated at what's been done or what's not been said, or how something is being done, whatever. But it starts with frustration, but that frustration builds and that ends up in anger. And we know that anger is that emotion that it's like an outward emotion that is a cover for deeper emotions. And so that anger then, if that builds up, and I know for me, if I let that build up, I will not allow that in. I think it's interesting as I say this, because I can definitely say for at least 5 years, I can't remember experiencing a level of anger that I think I experienced weekly in the first 30 years of my life. That's scary, right? Weekly. And I haven't experienced that. That's 5 years. So yeah. And if I can tell you the times when I felt anger, honestly, I don't even think it was anger, it was sadness. Yeah, it's just so amazing, really amazing. I mean, honestly, this is what gets to be true when we do this work. But that anger will build into resentment. And that resentment then means that you start looking at people and feeling, it's just a horrible feeling, is resentment. Like feeling that something should be some way different to how it is. And I think this, to me, for women is such a big one, because it comes from this part of us that's deeply nurturing naturally, and it's deeply forgiving and loving and mothering naturally, that when we haven't got that sense that things are being done in the way that they should be doing, then of course our relationship with people feels different, and that's where that resentment can come. And you can imagine with men that they find it much easier to not take it personally, and to not bring in the emotions and to be able to create that divide. So from the emotional perspective, that leaves us feeling very flat, like emotionally flat, but you're still performing. So you're like doing, but you just do with this feeling of like dread. And then an obvious one is digestion. Yeah. And this was one of my biggest ailments. I think my gut is still healing from that second burnout. So that's over 5 years. So digestive issues or autoimmune flares. But for me, I know in my gut is where I process a lot of my information. So that inflammation, that lack of just what I feel is just energy flow through my gut is just really disturbed. And then we can't forget that that's going to create a loss of libido, our joy, our sex drive. You know what it's like as for a woman, for example, that is in a relationship where her partner maybe wanted to make love and she's exhausted or stressed or has got something on her mind from something that they spoke about earlier that wasn't dealt with. I mean, it just becomes like that joy in your body, that sexual energy, just the fire is out. So that loss of libido, that wanting to express joy just goes, right? There's a beautiful book that I read about this called Women Who Run with Wolves. I just love that book because the way it's written is very much how traditionally we shared stories, in our tribes, and that she just shares so many beautiful stories of the seasons of women. So I really recommend you to read that book if you've not already. I talk a lot about functional medicine because from the physical body, that's a big important element of where I assess and test and check what's going on under the bonnet, let's say, so to speak. And in functional medicine, they say that with burnout with women, it often shows up as adrenal dysfunction, hormonal imbalances, and gut issues. So it's not just stress. Yeah. So let's look at some different layers of what makes it different for women in terms of how we're built up. So I think the first one is clearly biology. So women's biology is designed to be very cyclical in nature. So we're not linear. So our nervous system and our hormones are designed to be very cyclical in nature. Our hormones, if you look at the 28-day cycle, there is this beautiful bell curve that's happening, and there's like a spaghetti of lines if you look at it on a graph. And our nervous system and how we regulate is very, very heart-led. It's very much, what I mean by that is how something makes us feel is everything for us, right? Rather than the facts or the opinion or the information, the strategy, the theory. No, it's how it makes us feel. And so if you think about that being in nature, feeling in that way was such an important part of the woman's survival. And then, in our burnout, in our biology, should I say, the burnout will actually affect some of the major organs that are part of our thriving. So thyroid, in the personal growth and spiritual community, we talk about manifesting, right? And in the chakra system, this throat chakra area is where the thyroid is, and the thyroid is one of our glands that really manages our energy. And in the chakra system, we say that this area, throat chakra, represents communication. And so communication is linked to manifestation, because you can't manifest anything that you can't speak about. If you can't speak about what you want, how can you bring it from an idea into physical form? And yet the thyroid, representing also in a biological way our energy management system, that's a big issue. So we see that women burning out, we tend to see that they have thyroid issues. And their adrenals. And why? Because the adrenals, it's a gland they're designed to give you that extra adrenaline. But again, when a woman is pushing her physical body too much, it's like she uses all the testosterone that she's got, which is less than men anyway. She's using up all the adrenaline that she's got, and she's pushing the body to ask for more when it doesn't have it. So, of course, the adrenal fatigue happens, where the adrenal glands just literally back up and say, okay, there's no more gas in the tank. And so all of this is therefore going to affect our reproductive health. Like, think about it. Why would God, the universe, whatever, why would you allow you the energy to create another being when you're already like taking from the reserve that you have? All right, you're taking it not just from the reserve, you're going into the reserve and you're depleting it. So it makes sense that women may have issues with fertility and just general reproductive health. So this is from a biology perspective. I want to move into the identity, because women are conditioned to be caretakers. We are conditioned, and with our hormones, think about how our oxytocin works in a woman. Like, we just want to bond, whereas men, it's not saying that they want to bond with us, but oxytocin reduces their testosterone, and their testosterone gives them that drive. So they have to, when they get too much oxytocin, they have to retreat into their cave. So we are designed to be caretakers, to nurture, to take care. But we are expected also in our conditioning now to be caretakers, to be achievers, and to be peacekeepers. And the combination of all of those at once, that's what burns a woman out. It's just impossible to make sure everybody is happy, to take care of everybody, to be a high achiever at work, to keep peace with everybody. It's just impossible. So women trying to do all of these things at once, I think this is the biggest part of our identity that creates the burnout. So then that means that burnout becomes entangled with our worthiness, our self-worth. I coach a lot of projectors, and for projectors, they are such powerful beings that see how energy should be used efficiently, but in their own struggle is the struggle of not understanding how powerful they really are and how they can support us in the world to be able to do things more efficiently. And so because they don't necessarily see that part of their gifts themselves, they have a lot of self-worth to work through from their years of just being a human. But I see it generally, this worthiness and the things that we are doing to prove that we are worthy, to be recognized. Definitely my first burnout was a self-worth issue. I was looking for my boss for all of the recognition. Having not grown up also with a male figure around me majority of the time, I looked to that seniority, that male figure, and specifically the white 6 foot Caucasian male figure, because that's what society had shown me was the definition of success. And I looked to that person for recognition, and every single time I got a little nuance, because my empathetic nature of what that person liked, I did more of that. And that meant working long hours, just overworking my physical body. And that led to burnout, because I remember at the moment when I left my first corporate role and was probably on that journey to eventually leaving the corporate world, was when I should have received a promotion based on reaching a certain number that I'd been told that if I reach that, I get my promotion. And I remember my boss at the time saying to me that, Elika, yeah, you achieved it, but you're a one-trick pony. I mean, you've worked in this, you've done nothing else. You've worked in this industry most of your life. And I'd like to see you have other skills. And, for me, having followed a traditional career path where I came as a graduate, put my head down. I tried to achieve as much as I could. I then, started going up the traditional career path, right, with the promotions every 1 to 2 years. And so when I got into that position, and then I was expecting the next promotion based on doing what the system had told me, if I do this, I get this. And then for him to say I was one trick pony, when the system had taught me that if I specialize and if I go down this pathway, that is the pathway to success. And of course, it was just magic that he told me that, because in telling me that, he broke the dynamic in my head of the story that I was playing, that I'm on this career path and I do all this for you as a company, and then I get to the next level. Then I do all of this, and I get to the next level. Then I do all this, and I get to the next level. He smashed that thinking out of my head so fast in that moment. I resigned. I was being headhunted. I went to the nearest competitor. I got paid so much more for doing so much less. So I'm grateful for that experience. But I remember that my worthiness was so attached to what that management needed from me, and what they and how they recognized me. You have to understand that I was working in an environment where you literally ring a bell to say that you've achieved a financial goal for the company. And there is a saying that is, you are only as good as the last bell you rang, or it was only as good as your last fee. And so that was the type of environment I was operating in. I mean, I look back now and I go, I had so many amazing things that happened, that I loved so many things, the pace, like I see now as an entrepreneur, what it taught me, the discipline it gave me. But there were so many things that I can see now were extremely toxic for a woman in a workplace, for anyone in a workplace, but a woman in a workplace that just needs to be nurtured. So yes, identity is a big one. And then I think lastly is this lack of understanding of the rhythms and the cyclical, energetic nature of women. So most workplaces, all workplaces, should I say, they ignore menstrual phases, right? When have you walked into a workplace and they're like, okay, we need to consider your work projects based on the moon cycle or the 28-day cycle that women's hormones fluctuate? No, I would love this. But no, it doesn't exist. So yeah, our energy is governed by that. The chemistry of a woman's brain is 25% different in 28 days. So if you give that woman the wrong project, that big project or that big pitch to your investors or to your main stakeholders, and it's on the worst week for her, you're literally setting her up to fail. And so the culture that we live in doesn't recognize that, and the workplace definitely doesn't. How we process our emotions, the way that we feel so deeply, which is an essential requirement of a woman's biology to nurture her child, to nurture in the world. And so for women, that our emotions are felt so deeply. And this is not to say, a lot of the men that I get to work with, it's so beautiful. And just relationships I have generally where men are just so empathetic and in tune with their emotions, but yet, have learned to numb that along the way. But women, because it's more accepted that women are emotional, but the processing of those emotions, I don't think it doesn't play. I think, I'm part of a professional speakers network. And one thing that I love that they do is they will say when given feedback, how do you like to receive feedback? And this for me is really beautiful because it really plays into the fact that if you say this to me in a way that I can't take it, I might feel so bad about myself that you destroy a part of me and you don't get the best out of me. And so this speaks to this part of us that emotionally processes in a certain way. And I would just say, linked to this like energetic awareness that's lacking is the impact of a woman that is under receiving. So a woman that is giving out, but not getting the support. Like, one of my coaches and mentors says this, and I so believe it, that women, especially single women, are the cheapest labor in the workplace because they just give, they nurture, they are usually a bit anxious about their primal needs, so really want to make sure that they're collecting that paycheck, so they'll continue, and yet they don't have anybody else that is dependent on them, let's say at home, which then means that they have to leave on time, or they have to take the opinion in of their, let's say, their husband, that would not allow them to work this way. All of these things. And I'm going to say, when I had my Second burnout, I was married, so I still ignored the advice of my then husband then. So it's still easy to do when you've got your own limited beliefs happening, when you haven't done your inner work like I hadn't. And so it's still easy to believe. But when women are supported at home, when women have a family structure or a community structure that really supports them, or a coach and advisor that they're working with that's really paid for their well-being, like there to take care of them, that means that the management of them giving versus receiving is a lot more balanced. And I think the impact of under receiving is therefore not considered. So this is why this is so the work that I do, most men and women, but really getting people, especially through the Health Concierge, my signature program, is not to treat burnout like a time management issue or like something that is you're not capable of doing this, or failure, that you're failing, but to really see it as like an energy identity issue where you can now look at things through the lens of energy. And there are 3 ways that I do this with my clients. I track energy first, not just time. So I want to know what is bringing you energy and not giving energy away. And that's why I use my energy reset recipe where I work through the 4 pillars. So it's not just nutrition, it's movement. It's not just nutrition and movement, it's purpose and relationships. It's your mind and your beliefs and your sleep hygiene. It's all of it holistically, because I want to see all the areas of your life that are giving you energy versus taking you energy. And that is more important to me than time. Then the second thing that I look at is I build in recovery as a strategy for your lifestyle, not a reward. So for me, non-compulsory is some form of breathing and connecting with your breath. Non-compulsory is movement every day. Non-compulsory is my focus on whole foods that are the human being's diet, so that your body is receiving the nutrients that it's designed to eat, right? And so nourishment of the body, not salads, not cold food, not raw food. Yes, we can add all that in, but nourishing the body and the soul. Like for me, part of the strategy is also about clarity on who you are, what you're here to do, and how you're here to do it. That's why I build in human design. So we have got the authentic roadmap for you and not for somebody else. And lastly, the other thing that I really provide, I think, for my one-on-one clients on the Health Concierge is that emotional safety, so that the deepest, darkest things that are burdens for them, burdens for their soul, because that can come also from previous lifestyles or ancestrally passed down, or we know about epigenetics, and burdens in this current moment and this current experience of going through life. So I create such a powerful emotional safety for my clients. We share so many beautiful stories, and I, as a 6th line in human design, I understand that first 30 years for me had to be the turmoil, because that's the turmoil that now really helps me to help my clients to be able to move through life. So these are things that are really important to me when I'm working with a client. So, if this spoke to you, I want you to know that you're not weak, you're not lazy, you're definitely not broken. You're likely just living in a system that's not built for your biology. So yeah, I would love to hear what, comes up for you in terms of insights. So please leave your comments below, your insights below, and let me know what you think about what we've been sharing today. I would love to invite you to make sure you subscribe to my newsletter, because my newsletter is just one of the areas for me where I realize I'm really sharing the lifestyle habits and the journey of like living your life from energy management, where you want your energy to be an overflow and you want to give and create an impact in the world based on overflow. And that's what I think we're truly all here to do. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with somebody that you know. And if you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? So take care, and I'll see you on the next one.